What's up everybody, my name is Zach. Thanks for tuning in and watching. What you just saw was a fake LaCroix ad I made from my basement. So basically, to explain to you where I'm coming from with this video and what I want to hopefully accomplish in this behind the scenes is I was just at home. I had the house to myself. My wife was gone, my kids were in bed, and I've been wanting to try my hand at some product videos. And so I had some LaCroix on hand. I was like, I'm gonna try and make a LaCroix ad. So this is not sponsored. I'm not doing this for LaCroix. This was just purely for fun, for learning, and that's it. So what I'll show you in this video was how I did that with a minimalistic setup. In fact, a lot of my gear was not even at my house, is at my office, so I didn't have my other camera. I only had my 1A camera. I didn't have a lot of my lights, so I just had to make do with what I had, and I didn't have my green screen. So I just kind of made it up as I went, and as you'll see, I came up with some pretty janky solutions to try to do that. So what I'll show you in this video is I'll break down what I did and how I did it and what I thought worked really well, what I would have done differently if I were actually doing this for a client like LaCroix, and if I had the appropriate gear and all that with me. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Hopefully you enjoy this process, it's fun, and you learn something. So first, let's talk setup and what I had to work with, and I'll show you kind of what I had going on. I had this really cheap light that was actually just given to me. It's just one little bulb. It doesn't change temperature. It doesn't change brightness or anything like that. I did add an extra layer of diffusion over that because it was coming off too harsh, and I didn't like all the shadows I was getting because of it. And then I brought my LED newer lights in NEEWER. And those were also, those have been a great buy for me. I got those when I was first starting out in video. It was like, I think like $250 for two of them, and you can adjust the brightness, you can adjust the temperature, and there's some diffusion that you can put on it. I ended up actually adding extra diffusion because it wasn't enough diffusion and I was still getting too harsh of a light. But those were the two lights that I used, and I was having issues with some overexposure on parts of the can, especially right where the letters were. So I had to do some adjusting, kind of move it around, back the light up, try to move it closer, and raise my f-stop. And in hindsight, I would have grabbed a poster board or something to kind of bounce the light better around the subject, because if you look closely in the cans, you can actually see the two sides, the two lights illuminating the can, and it was a very reflective thing. So I would have got some poster board, put it up against it, and kind of reflected the light better if I were doing this again. For the background, I used another of my newer lights and just lit up the back wall for some of the shots. For some of them, because I didn't have my green screen with me, I went to my closet and I just looked for shirts that were a solid color that was not going to be on the can. So I had an orange and a blue one, and I ended up using the blue one for all my keys because the orange was too close to the colors on the cans. And then I actually got my little aperture light and put it in there for some of the shots to give it a nice kind of spot backlight to it, and that actually worked out way nicer than I thought it was going to. I just put my t-shirt on over one of the bar stools I had down there that had a backrest, so I could just wrap the t-shirt on it, and I was really impressed with actually how that looked, and so I ended up not even changing the background on a lot of it because I liked it. One of the issues I did have was the letters LaCroix was a darker shade of blue, and so I had to really make sure I color corrected the blue on my shirt so that it was different enough from the blue in the can, but it actually ended up working out really well, as you see in some of the shots. And then I put the can on one of my other bar stools with actually some mudding. We're redoing some of our basement, so I've got some drywall mud, and put a big 5-gallon bucket on the bar stool, and then I laid down a black, you can use a sheet or whatever, but I just used the cover that holds my reflectors, diffusers, and put that down. I tried to do actually if you look closely, you can see the underside is some really silver reflective stuff, and I actually tried that at first, but it was reflecting too much and it was looking really weird. So I just used the black side for under the can, and then put that on like a square dish just to elevate it higher, and I knew I could key that part out, which I actually do in some of the shots. So that's all I used, and then I just manually rotated the can. I don't have an Edelkrone or anything, so maybe I'll invest in that at some point. But then I just set it up and I tried several takes until I got something I liked. And then when I put it in the computer, I obviously color corrected. I keyed out some of the background in some of them and masked out the can, and was able to do some fun stuff with that. I got some interesting backgrounds from story blocks and used that to add some flair to some of the shots. And if I were actually doing this for LaCroix or a client, then I would not make it a 30-second video, most likely. It would be like a 7-second or 15-second spot ad. But because I was trying out some stuff, I just made it longer. In hindsight, I probably should have just cut some of the duplicate shots or the similar looking shots, but I didn't. I got some spray. My wife cuts hair, or used to cut hair. Now she just stays at home with the kids, but she still has all her hair stuff, and I went into the closet, got that out, and just sprayed water on all the cans to make them look like the condensation was there, made them look nice and cool and refreshing. And that made a huge difference because originally I forgot to do that, so I did a couple takes without it, and I was like, oh, it's flat looking because there's no condensation on it, so I added that. And then for some of the other shots, I actually just got like I said, I'm remodeling different parts of my house, so I just got a flat piece of wood that was unstained or anything. It's just real light looking, which ended up working out for like a beach background later in the ad. But I just laid that on top of that 5-gallon bucket for like a tabletop, and then I was able to shoot more with that. It ended up working pretty well. Now, fortunately, the walls in my basement are just white, so I shot up a light to make it brighter and kind of enhance it a little bit. But if I'd had a green screen, that would have made it much easier. In some of the shots, I was able to fit everything I was doing with the t-shirt on the background to be able to key out some of it. And, there's areas where that didn't work real great if you're looking closely. But then there's parts of it that actually ended up looking really good. But with the white backdrop, I would have done that differently if I were actually doing it for a client. I actually tried to use the Luma keyer to try to kind of like take it out, but because some of the can has some reflections that were just as light as the wall, it ended up not working out. So I just tried to make them real quick shots where you couldn't see it quite as clearly. But I don't know, that's something I would have done differently. But for the sake of my little creation, it worked out all right. I actually didn't shoot anything in 24 frames per second. I shot it all in either 60 frames per second, 4K, or in 120 frames per second, 1080. And you can kind of see where the 1080 breaks down a little bit when I tried to crop in for some of this stuff. I tried with all 3 cans to get a nice opening of the can, and they all had the white background, so I didn't like any of them. But I ended up using one of them that worked out all right. It was funny when I was looking at my monitor to make sure I was in focus, and I did use manual focus for all this, by the way. I didn't use autofocus for anything. I didn't want any hunting going on, and I just wanted to be able to control everything. So I was watching my monitor. I had my arm just kind of like extended, and I was just trying to also aim for the cup I had below to pour the LaCroix into that, so I could get the pour shot. And I thought that worked out pretty decent. I cannot stress enough either how important the diffusion was on my little LED panel type light, because when I would remove it, you could see all the harsh shadows and stuff. It didn't look right. But then when I added the diffusion, it just made the light much softer, and there were no harsh shadows. It made the image look a lot better. So if there's one thing I learned from this shoot, it was that diffusion was so important to get these shots to look the way they did. And often the shots I didn't like were shots that weren't diffused enough. And then for the final shot, I just used again that blue t-shirt background. I keyed out and then put in a beach behind it, and you can actually see where the liquid is pouring, where that key really broke down a little bit. Maybe you didn't notice it on your first watch. I hope not. But if I were doing that for an actual client, I would have done it differently. And then I just did a pour, put the 3rd can in there and framed it up, and just did a little digital zoom out in post, and easy as that. Well, that's all I got for you. Hopefully that was entertaining. Hopefully you got something out of that and learned something. I know I sure did while trying to do this. If you have any other suggestions or something that I missed or any tips like that, go ahead and leave those in the comments. I will make sure to read those. And this is all just a learning process for me as well. I've done lots of interview style videos, commercial shoots, event footage, but I've not done any product videos before. So this was a first for me, but I like Daniel Schiffer a lot and I watch his videos. And so I was like, you know what? I want to try. So I did. Let me know what you think again in the comments below. That's all I got for you. Hope you are having a great day. I'll catch you in the next one.